We're halfway through 2025. The real estate market in Santa Clara County has shifted. And if you are not an educated buyer or an educated seller, you're going to miss the market. We're also going to talk about, will AI replace real estate agents? It's got a lot of brokerages and a lot of agents freaking out. And if you don't embrace technology, technology will embrace you. So lots to cover today. Check it out. I'm going to jump right into today's episode because I think we have a lot of great things to talk about. First thing I want to talk about is kind of a mid-year update, right? We're a little over halfway through 2025. And what's the state of the market? Interest rates are still stubbornly high, right? About 6.5%. Fed hasn't cut rates yet this year. There is a lot of speculation now that they will cut rates in September. And so I want to talk about how that's going to affect the market. But first, I want to give you guys a sense of where we stand today. 962 active single-family homes, so down a little bit. 707 active condos and townhomes. Homes are still moving pretty quickly. We've got about 600 or so pending single-family homes, so we've only got about a month and a half's worth of inventory. And we've got about 2.5 months worth of condos and townhomes. So I think we've hit our peak, right? I think our numbers in June and July were a little bit higher. Mm-hmm. And like we do every year, we start to see things kind of slow down, less inventory between now and the end of the year. But the big difference, aside from inventory being up about 35% kind of Bay Area wide, big difference between last year and this year is this year so far about 45% of homes have had a price reduction, right? So 1 out of every 2 homes on the market, the sellers have had to drop their price. So the first thing I want to talk about is buyers' mindset and expectations. The 3 of you guys work with a lot more buyers than I do. So last year only 20% of the homes had price reductions, right? About 1 in 5. This year we're 1 in 2. So what has changed in the buyer's psychology or mentality that they're not running out and scooping up homes right away?
I think there's quite a lot of uncertainty in the buyer's minds regarding their job's security. Like I had a client in the contract and freaked out in the middle of it because he thought he was going to get laid off this month, and that uncertainty is not just like one-off. I'm seeing that across the board, like a lot of open house visitors as well. They go like, okay, things are slowing down, mm-hmm. But my stock's doing really well, but I don't know if I'll have a job next month. So I think that's what's driving a lot of uncertainty. Okay. But the difference between how the stock market's performed over the last few months and the buyer confidence, that this relation is something that we haven't seen.
It's kind of going 2 different directions, right? Yeah, it's the stock market's inverse. Coming back, but buyers are being hesitant about pulling the trigger on houses.
Exactly. Like from March till now, since the dip, things have recovered 20 to 40% depending on what stock you're looking at. So the stock market's done really well, mm-hmm. but we are not seeing that translate to real estate. Yeah. And I think a bigger part of that is also the Apple stock. Apple stock's been pretty stagnant, and that's mm-hmm. a big part indicator of our employer pool that
right, the portfolios, like the index funds, a lot of it's tied to Apple stock.
To Apple, exactly. So I think that's also kind of holding our market down in terms of local real estate market. Mm-hmm. But with the rate cuts coming up next month, or predicted rate cuts towards the end of the year, I think that's really going to help bring back some buyer confidence. And I think it's just on affordability as well as that job uncertainty, a mix of both of those.
Yeah, I think one of the things in our valley is typically when a tech person will get laid off, they get hired again right away, right? Or they have multiple job offers. And I think you're right. We've always talked about our market is tied to the, obviously the economy and tech sector specifically. And yeah, now there's that apprehension. There's like, okay, I think I might get laid off, and a lot of other tech companies are doing layoffs as well. So there's not as many job opportunities for me. Ben, what are you seeing?
I think a lot of my buyers in the beginning of the year were overthinking the current market, thinking that interest rates were going to drop sooner, thinking, because the inventory levels have gone up, there's given more opportunity to pick a property. But they've slowly found out that the good properties are still moving quickly. Right. And like Jeet said, I think there's a disconnect between how much a home is worth and how much they have to pay per month. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of my generation specifically has the money to put down on a home as a down payment, mm-hmm. but that monthly mortgage is just unattainable in a lot of these areas. So in many of these neighborhoods where inventory has risen so much, they think they're going to come in and get a deal. But the only deals that we're seeing are the ones that are overpriced.
Right.
People who are still pricing properly are still moving them quickly. So I think when that disconnect sort of fizzes out, or we start to see hopefully a price or a interest rate / decrease come down, I think that's going to put more confidence in a lot of these buyers and just the ability to now make those payments. And get in where they can fit in instead of trying to pick the perfect home for the payment that they're putting down.
Yeah, because remember too, it's not directly correlated, but typically mortgage interest rates follow, the Fed's fund rate. But when the Fed cuts rates, it also brings down the interest on your credit card and your car loans, right? So you tend to have a little bit more money overall to apply towards a mortgage. Jason, I know you work with like a lot of investors, and so because homes are staying on the market longer, because there's price reductions, are investors feeling a little more bullish? Are they looking for more opportunities right now than maybe they were at the beginning of the year when everything was selling, for at or above market? What are you seeing with investors?
Overall, just more like conservative and running numbers. Even if like the guys that have been doing it for a while had like a lot of fun, like 2021, 2020, early 2022, where you could get a house, project it's going to go for, you buy it for 1.3, say you think it's going to go for 1.7, and then just over that 90-day period, it goes for 1.8 or 1.85.
Right.
And those days aren't there anymore, and they get that. So kind of the same thing. And just to add a stat real quick to what you had, as of July 31st of this year, Zillow has sold data for average price still at that like 165 mark, like we've had, but average days on market went from 9 to 20.
Yeah.
And so kind of like echoing what you guys are saying, people are a lot more patient and then kind of looking for a deal.
Yeah.
I have a ton of buyers that are like, hey, this one's been sitting for a couple weeks, sitting for a couple weeks. Do you think we can come in like way under and all that kind of stuff? But yeah, I think it's just more conservative running numbers. And what are we going to buy at? What is it going to cost to fix it up? And then what's like a very safe exit price? Right. And then if anything over, it's just cherry on top.
Can I add something to that too? And you guys correct me if I'm wrong. I think we talked about this in the beginning of the year, but like we're in a time where rent in some situations is much more affordable now than compared to the mortgage at the home they're living in. And I think that takes into a lot of effect as well when people are paying rent, let's say $5,000 and they're getting X, and then they look at how much they need to pay in a mortgage, and then they get X in this.
It's double, yeah.
And it just doesn't make sense. They're living a happier life in this rental than they are, in a home that although they might like more, but having to pay double might not be feasible to family starting or jobs changing.
I was just thinking about this the other day, like the price that I bought my house for and what my brother bought his house for, but like 4 years ago at 2.75% interest rate was a 6% interest rate. My payment is about $4,000 higher for pretty much the same purchase price. Like it's crazy how big of a difference it is in terms of a monthly payment or monthly outlay. But I guess everyone that's buying right now is making that bet that rates are going to come down. It's going to get more affordable.
Yeah.
And then eventually you'll be in a better position.
They're also making the bet that they're going to be in this area
For a long time.
Yeah.
for a long time. They're going to be stable with their jobs. They're going to start a family. They're in the school district.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and we used to see people would sell every 6 to 8 years, kind of in that range, historically, as long as I've been in the business. Now, if you look at it in Santa Clara County specifically, it's up to like 13 years. So again, buying for the long term, makes a lot of sense. And I also think within the next year or two, we're going to get out of the market where people remember the lower interest rates as buyers, right? I mean, sellers are still going to be sitting on some great interest rates, but I mean, we're getting to the point where this is all buyers know anyway. So your brother who bought years ago, I mean, he's no longer in the buyer market, right? It's guys like you, right? Or Ben, you bought last year too, that it's like, hey, 6% is what it is. And if it comes down a little bit, great, and we'll take advantage. But rates aren't going to come down to where it's going to save you $4,000 a month.
Yeah.
We're never going to see those 2 and 3% interest rates, in my opinion, in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Maybe our kids, if some crazy economic thing happens and they have to go down again. But I think ultimately, based on what the current administration wants, I think we'd be lucky to get rates at 5% at some point over the next 2 or 3 years.
I believe this team will be together forever, so I'd love to check this stat. I'd love to check this stat in 2030 when we're ripping this podcast. But the 13-year I mean, okay, so if we're looking at 13 years, that has to start between 2012. They hit the 2% in 2020, 2021, and they're still riding it out.
Yeah.
Like, when we buy, there's no way we can stay in it for 13 years. Like, we have to turn it, or we're going to get hit with taxes. But
not only that,
and like you said, I don't think
it's going to be a lot.
Drop.
It's going to be a lot easier for the two of you to sell a home.
Yeah.
To move,
well, that's what I mean. It's
right?
going to,
because you're in about the same interest rates, right? So that mortgage, you don't have that payment shock.
Yeah.
As somebody that's holding on to a 2% rate going into a 6%.
And that's what I mean. I think anybody who purchased after 2024, maybe 2023, I think that stat now goes back down to like 6.
And
7,
you're probably right.
8.
You're right. Because they're going to take what equity they have and they're going to move into a bigger home, and it's going to, the mortgage is going to be comparable. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. And then the last part of that market update that I wanted to address is from a seller's perspective, because I'm still seeing some very stubborn sellers that have these expectations of, even just the beginning of the year, let alone, last year and beyond, and they're like, hey, well, we want more per square foot than the last one sold for. But the reality is, in our market, I mean, it's not the case. I mean, I've got a couple situations right now where sellers are fighting for an extra 20 or 30 grand, and if that buyer walks away, chances are, based on what we're reading, the next offer is going to be lower, right? And I've seen greed, take hundreds of thousands of dollars off the table for sellers because they didn't jump at that first offer. And like we tell most of our clients, sometimes your first offer is your best offer.
Yeah.
And days on market is not your friend.
Yeah. I think the theme of this last year has been just expectations, how to set the expectation. And I had a conversation, we talked about it in my office yesterday, just about how to price, let's say a condo, for instance, compared to a single family home in a market where condos are well over how many condos I feel like should be on the market. We have an excess of inventory. So when we were talking to our seller yesterday about how to price that compared to a single family home, they wanted, again, setting the expectation in advance, wanted to start a tad bit higher, knowing, listen, we might not get multiple offers on a condo because there's so many. We might not get it at this price point. So let's start higher, be okay with countering down and getting those offers a little lower and negotiating.
Yeah.
Single family homes, I feel like that
It's
is
different.
a horrible strategy in our market right now.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, is that, our market is slowing down, but how you price a home versus a condo and a townhome is different. And if you're working with an agent that doesn't understand that, and they think, oh, we'll just price low and we're going to get a bunch of offers, it is a completely different strategy in condo townhome market. And I completely agree. More transparency on the condo townhome side, in terms of how you set your list price. Because we're sitting at, double what we normally sit at for condos. And typically, in an expensive market like ours, condos and townhomes are the first to go, because that's the affordability factor. But because of SB 326, excuse me, but because of things like the stairway and patio laws and things like that, I mean, you almost don't want to touch a condo or townhome right now that's in a big community.
And especially when you market, I think, again, townhomes, condos, very first-time home buyer friendly, maybe people who are downsizing from single-family homes. But as HOAs start to increase and our interest rates stay at 6 to 7, you're now looking at a normal pay. And I, had this conversation with a young buyer. Parents were helping out. Parents are asking, what are your thoughts on it? Well, again, we have a $570 HOA that does not include water, and your child has a dog that needs food every month. So between bills, mortgage, food for the dog, and now a $570 HOA, it's like we're now back up at a single family mortgage.
It's true, and we're just not getting the appreciation out of condos and townhomes that we used to. They always lag behind single family homes, but I've got a buyer in contract now in downtown San Jose. The HOA is $1,089 a month. $1,089 a month, and you don't get a ton of amenities for that. And the reality is that the higher the HOA puts that ceiling on how high value can go on a condo or townhome, because to your point, then they'll just switch to, instead of maybe a condo with $1,000 HOA, they may find a townhome further out of their ideal market, lower HOA, but more of a single family home kind of feel.
Yeah, well, like yesterday I was showing a few properties in Sunnyvale, Santa Clara, and one property, both were priced similarly, but one was $300 HOA, the other one was $700 HOA. And she's like, oh, I really like the $700 HOA more. And I was like, just so you know, when you put that out and how much it's going to cost you, it's almost like paying $50,000 extra for a $400 payment a month, right? And then when you put it that way, you kind of understand like what that price difference would be.
Yeah,
Well,
and as long as I've been doing this, I've never seen an HOA monthly due go down.
Never.
They always go up.
Well, and that's what I was gonna say. So many buyers don't realize that, and those agents who are not as thorough with their investigations and reviewing these don't understand. If you go back in history, you can see how the HOAs increase, so you can find what those patterns are. You get into this HOA at 700 now, you might be in it at $1,000 in 5 years.
Well, exactly.
Every year they'll up it.
What is it? 1
Yeah.
to 3% or 1% per
Yeah,
year?
I mean,
Unless a litigation or an assessment happens, and then they
you're-
hit you with a.
then you're screwed.
And it never goes down from that. Once the assessment hits, it's there forever.
I actually saw an HOA fee go down by like $120 in one of the communities, and I was shocked. But what they did was they did some flood risk improvements, so their flood insurance went down, so it brought the HOA fees down. That's the only time I've seen it.
Yeah,
But
that
otherwise
might be the
always
only one I've ever heard of. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Real quick, just to on the SB 36, a question came up from a buyer recently that if they live on the bottom floor of a community that does not have a staircase and it does not have a balcony because they're on the bottom floor,
Doesn't matter.
are they still responsible when the assessment comes out?
That's the definition of community, right? Everybody shares.
We're all one.
We're all in this together.
They said, but we never walk up the stairs. Well,
Doesn't
let me
matter.
tell you how this goes.
Yeah, but the patio above you could collapse
And
onto
then,
your
yeah.
unit.
The building that's not even attached to you,
It-
five buildings down.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
will affect yours too.
Yeah.
I had that situation happen where just in my building, none of those issues were occurring, and then the lender couldn't loan on that. So out of like
Yeah.
20 buildings, our building was perfect, pristine condition. But
Yeah,
nope.
it doesn't matter. So,
Doesn't matter.
It'll be interesting to see how we end the year. We'll do an end of year recap and see kind of what's changed from where we're at. But definitely interesting time in the market. And, it continues to amaze me about how many agents out there just don't understand.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess it speaks to when you're not doing a lot of transactions, or you're not part of a team, right? Because we all work kind of different areas and there's overlap too. But, I know I can go to, Jason and ask him about Los Gatos, or I can go to Jeet and ask you about Fremont or Sunnyvale, and Ben about Cambrian. And so it's nice to have our finger on the pulse of these things because it allows us to, speak with authority and experience on really what's going on and kind of telling it like it is.
Yeah, yeah. I've been staring at this goddamn picture for 5 minutes now since it caught my eye, and I'm
Look at
just.
that, Jacob.
Yeah. All right. So now I want to talk about AI, and specifically AI in real estate and AI in the future of real estate. So, I don't know about you guys, but I use AI on a daily basis now, right? Multiple times a day. And there's this wild story out of Vegas. I won't show the picture just
I
yet.
don't know what's going on
Ben's
right
already
now.
shaking.
Yeah. So if any of you have ever watched The Godfather, there's a very.
You ever seen The Godfather?
I know
That's
this.
real.
So yeah, homework for Jeet. Watch all three Godfathers. The second Godfather's the best.
Perfect.
But anyway, in The Godfather, guy wakes up with a horse's head in his bed, right?
Okay.
And it's a sign of of what's to come if you don't fall in line.
Okay.
Wild story out of Vegas. There is an AI. Yeah, forget about it. Leave the gun, grab the cannoli. There is a wild story out of Vegas where there's an AI startup. And there's a picture of the guy, the CEO of the company, kind of looks like Clark Kent. But anyway, there's the real estate AI in Vegas, and the AI itself is called Marcus. And this company, Agrippo, I think I'm pronouncing it right, used their AI Marcus to negotiate a $45 million deal in Vegas without using brokers. So, as you can imagine, it ruffled the feathers of at least one broker, or potentially a broker. The CEO came home and found a box at his front door.
What's in the box?
What's in the box? And that's another.
Salami.
Yeah,
The movie's called Seven.
yeah.
All right.
You got to watch that one too,
Gotta
Jeet.
take notes.
CEO goes home. There's a box at his front door. It doesn't say who it's from. He opens it up, and there's a pig's head
Oh my god.
in the box. And along with the note,
With dice. Not to ruin the movie or anything.
yeah, and along with the note that essentially says to this CEO out in Vegas, it says, hey, this town wasn't built by investors or builders. This town definitely wasn't built by tech CEOs wearing Lululemon. It was built by brokers. And basically told him, enjoy it while it lasts, because pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. And really interesting, right? I mean, because, here's a $45 million transaction, which could roughly equate to about $900,000 in commission, right? Or more for each side of the transaction. And so, my question to you, that I want to put out to you guys is, the message the CEO gave was that, hey, traditional brokerages are done, right? And the way I feel about AI is, I don't think AI is going to replace me. I think I use AI to handle the tasks that are a waste of my time. And I think that agents that embrace AI but still focus on relationships are going to dominate. So I want to know kind of what your take is on AI. I mean, because our industry is panicking, right? So I want to get your take on where you think AI is going to go within real estate and how it's going to affect our jobs and brokerages in general.
If you use AI to sell your home, the VKG team will take advantage of you. I just don't understand. There's no way of AIs can negotiate as well as humans can.
Yeah.
They don't have the relationships with the other side to build that trust and honesty and back and forth persistence. I don't think AI has the natural intelligence to understand what makes the backside of my neighborhood different than the front side of my neighborhood. And I don't think AI has the understanding on where neighborhoods will be in the next 5 to 10 years in our markets like we do.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely a big move to that, and I can see how that can be a possibility, but I don't see that human touch or human engagement through the process will die or will go away. I think it's such a nerve-wracking process, and speaking to a computer to buy a $5 million house is just something that I don't think people will get their will wrap their heads around anytime soon.
Yeah.
But maybe 50 years from now, and when kind of it's an unemotional decision,
And our team will still be together.
That's right.
with our walking sticks.
In 2075,
We'll be doing this podcast talking about
from a retirement home.
with our Tesla robot sitting next to us.
Yeah.
and our dentures.
Yeah, AI will not go underneath the house to check a foundation like we will. Like it just does not in an area like the rental market, where you can stick a lockbox on a door and someone can go to an app and unlock that lockbox and tour if they want to, and then submit an application and get their credit ran. Sure.
Yeah.
But the largest investment you own, you're gonna.
Well, yeah, I don't think Tim Cook or Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, I don't think they're going to rely on AI to transact a home. And you bring up a lot of really good points. It's like AI is just putting out the data that it sees and understands. It doesn't necessarily know, how the sun hits that living room at 6 a.m. in the morning, or what, how the door facing may affect a particular client, or, they're not walking through a home and seeing the feng shui aspects that certain demographics in our market care about. And to your point, Ben, like the trends of a neighborhood, right? I mean, it's harder for them to forecast, hey, is this a good investment or a good flip? Because 3 years or 5 years from now, this underdeveloped neighborhood is actually, going through a transition, and you're going to get, your gains that way.
Well, even the importance of like your neighborhood potlucks, like your neighborhood outings, like Halloween and Christmas in Willow Glen. Like, there's no way AI can even portray that to a buyer coming in from a different part of town.
Yeah, and also too, I think, again, you can use it as a tool, but I don't think you put that out in front of the real estate agent. Us walking through a home to give advice to a seller on what they need to do to prepare it, is very unique to that particular neighborhood. You may prepare a home in Willow Glen differently than you would in the east side of San Jose. You may invest more in a Willow Glen home than that home, right? Or Los Gatos too. It really just depends. What school district does it fall into? What are the important things? And I don't see us us at a high level being replaced, right? I think lazy agents, it's easy to replace them because they don't do much anyway. My hope is ultimately, we go from our 13,000 agents that we have in our marketplace down to maybe 3,000 or 5,000. So I hope technology helps thin the herd, but I don't ever see it replacing what we do. And if you look, AI is relatively new, but look at what Zillow and some of those companies were trying to do over the last 3 to 5 years. They were trying to take agents out of the equation.
And even with their Zillow estimates and stuff, like those are AI tools.
Yeah.
Fun fact, the CEO of Zillow sold his home for, I think, close to $1 million under what his Zillow estimate was. So it's like all these tools can get put into place, but at the end of the day, it comes down to market knowledge. Like same thing that you guys say, the house on the top of the hill in Los Gatos compared to the house on the bottom of the hill in Los Gatos. No matter what the Zillow estimate says, it's portrayed on the value that the home's worth to the buyer.
Well, yeah. And if, there's different AIs, right? ChatGPT and Gronk and those guys. And if you ask each one of them, and maybe we'll do it on a future episode, you ask each one of them, hey, I have a house at 278 Bayless Drive. What is it worth? What is the best way to market it? What type of buyers will I have? You put that same prompt into those two different AIs, you're going to get two different responses.
You have a 500 grand spread right now on Zillow and Redfin with all homes. It's insane.
Yeah. And so, I think a lot of times, and this is the industry's fault. We post pictures, in front of $5 million homes and expensive cars. And a lot of agents show this pretend lifestyle that you see on Netflix and that sort of thing. And I think that hurts our image, to the community at whole, because they think, oh, they're overpaid and they don't work that hard, but it's our own fault. The reality is, we're paid to solve problems. Right? Whether it's a buyer trying to get into a home or a seller that's, trying to position to get the most money, we're paid to solve problems. And I don't see AI taking that human, like Jeet said, taking that human factor out of it anytime soon. Until they put a microchip inside of me or something, I'm not seeing it.
I think that we'll be armed with more data and tools to conduct our business, and agents that, do well with AI will replace agents that don't. I don't think AI replaces us,
right?
Because we are consultants to the client. So all this data that we'll have available to us, they'll need someone to interpret that for them, right? Because not everyone's that tech savvy or
Correct.
data savvy. So there's always going to be that human touch aspect to it. But I do think that our processes will get a lot faster and quicker and more efficient. Like, for example, you used to take me 2 hours to go through disclosures. Now it takes me 30 minutes. Now it takes me even lesser sometimes, because if there's an HOA doc, I have a preset prompt with all the questions that I need answers to, and then I put it on Grok and I have them highlight the pages so that I don't have to look through a 500 document,
to find the reserve fund or
exactly
80 minutes.
the right parts of the document that I need to refer to. So I still read it myself, but then I prompt it to take me to it so that I get there quicker.
Yep.
Right. So those kind of little things that help you save time, even from a writing an offer standpoint, right? Like having the templates in place. So it takes me, the other day we were going out to lunch and I had 5 minutes to write an offer, and I got it done within 3 to 4 minutes, because I had all the systems in place and I've written for that client before, and just quicker.
Right.
So the more efficient you get with the process, I think lazy agents will get replaced.
Yeah, and kind of my final thought on that too is liability. So if an AI puts together a $45 million real estate deal and then a lawsuit arises out of it, right? Where we as agents are on the hook for being the experts. We have E&O insurance to cover if we do make a mistake. If you're relying on, an AI that specifically, typically when it spits out answers, says, hey, we might not have caught everything. This don't take it as gospel. I think there's that liability factor too. It's a lot different than self-driving cars or taxis, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think our at the foundation, like you guys are saying, the brass taxes, we need to connect a buyer and a seller, right? Ben has a seller, I have a buyer. We have a lot of phone calls and conversations on, hey, what are they thinking? What do we need to be? This, that, and the other, and then we collectively get those two to come together and agree on something.
Yeah.
And ChatGPT is not gonna do
Yeah,
that.
and I don't care if you're a software engineer or a restaurant owner. you don't have experience in negotiating complex real estate transactions. I don't care if you use AI to help you or not. I'm not gonna, I may go to AI to like, hey, I have this symptom and help diagnose me, but I'm not gonna perform surgery on myself. I'm definitely not gonna perform surgery on myself when I have ChatGPT up telling me where to cut. Right? I'm still gonna go to a doctor.
Insert here.
Yeah. Right? And
Kill myself.
Yeah, and so while it may provide you with valuable information to educate you on the transaction, you don't do the transaction yourself, right? Which is why typically, for sale by owner, sellers net less than what they would if they listed with an agent and put it on the open market.
Agreed.
All right, so we'll see. And in when are we gonna do a flashback to this? In
2030 was the first one.
Yeah, and then 2075 on the next one. All right, well, stay tuned. Anything else before we wrap for the day?
Jeet's got a good one. It's the 1 year anniversary of.
The big change since August 17th.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's
Well, it's almost the 1 year anniversary.
Yeah, so
By this time this airs.
Yeah, 1 year anniversary of the class action settlement against NAR. And I remember G coming to me and saying,
My business is done.
all my business is buyers.
Buyers agents are out.
And since then, Jeet's bought a house, he's remodeling it, he's one of the top agents in the office. So how has the big settlement affected you?
It hasn't actually. It's gotten easier. I think buyers are easier to work with because there's a lot more like there's a written agreement that we are working together. There's like a specified time.
Yeah.
I guess there's less stress on myself to get things like done right this second. But at the same time, I think it's the reading buyers between who's serious, who's not gets easier. So I guess I'm more efficient with my time. And then from a compensation standpoint, nothing has really changed in the way we transact.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, we're still getting about 2.5% on the buy side deals, right?
Yeah.
And I think again, it also exposes inexperienced or lazy agents because those agents may be able to get an agreement signed with the buyer, but the buyer also has the opportunity to fire that agent and go sign with somebody better, right? And so I think there is some benefit there. I do think from our perspective it's made things better, right?
Yeah.
Because again, we know we have a committed buyer that's willing to work with us, and that we receive compensation at the end of that.
Absolutely. Like we get listing agreements signed before we list the house. Why would we not get buyer broker agreement signed before we show a house, right?
Yeah.
So it's gotten a lot of serious buyers through the door, and knows that we are just as committed to them as they are committed to us. So I guess it made things quite easy, and sellers still are paying the buyer's agent.
in
Most of
most
the offers
cases,
that we are
yeah.
receiving, the compensation is still standard, and so it's business as usual. So it's marks that 1 year anniversary of doom and gloom.
Yeah, and business goes on, life goes on.
Yeah.
Good talk today.
Good talk.
Music in the Park this weekend? Last one?
Yeah.
No, two more.
Two more? Second to last one?
We have 2 more weekends.
And then we also have one Wednesday of Jazz in the Plaza.
I was gonna say I thought we had a third thing. That's it. Yeah,
There it is.
Jazz in the Plaza.
All right, so yeah, if you want to come hang out with us, it's always free if you're with me, and we'll see you soon.
And as always, who you work with matters.
Come on.